delighted to see you all here this afternoon for the opening of this exhibition by Mary Sullivan. This is a really, really special occasion for us. We're absolutely thrilled and delighted to have this solo exhibition by Mary Sullivan here at Ealaíon. Mary is a graduate of the BA in Visual Art, Chomhairle, and has been working on this body of work for 3 or 4 years. 3 years. And it's just such a really important and really exciting thing for us to have a show of this calibre, of this work here at Ealaíon by one of the graduates of the BA programme. I just want to congratulate Mary for an excellent show and wonderful work, and really powerful, really considered, really, really exciting work, and you've done a fantastic job, so congratulations. Hey. I just also want to thank the staff here Mary will probably say more about that later, but the many, many people who have worked with Mary and helped Mary in making this work and in getting it here. And thanks to the staff here for installing the exhibition so beautifully. Yes. And I just also want to thank our funders, the Arts Council of Ireland and Cork Council, and also to thank Creative Places, the West Cork Islands, who have also supported the work, supported this exhibition in coming to be. And I'm really delighted also to welcome Sarah Kelleher. Sarah Kelleher is a writer and curator based in Cork City, and delighted that Sarah can be with us today to officially launch the exhibition here for us. So over to you, Sarah.
Slightly softly spoken. Can you hear me if I speak like this? Yes. Let's go for it. Okay. So thanks so much, Mary, for inviting me to be here today and for giving me the opportunity to talk to you about this really impressive, deeply considered, very potent body of work. It's been so interesting to think about the idea of an island, to think about the idea of the island as metaphor, but also how that rubs up against the experience, the lived experience of life on an island. The title of the show, From the Inside Out and the Outside In, is really interesting. It suggests two different trajectories or two different vantage points. To express something from the inside suggests, an intimate perspective, an intimate position. From the outside then, looking in or moving in, suggests something exploratory, something slightly invasive. So there's a doubleness here, not a doubling up of positions, but two contrasting movements held in tension. And this tension, or this doubleness, animates all of the work in this exhibition, which takes as its subject matter Beara Island and the realities of island life. It considers the ways in which island life is experienced from the inside out, and how island life might be perceived from the outside in a series of paired works that present us with these alternate views. And the idea of doubleness, or a kind of tension, undergirds the whole idea of an island. The philosopher Gilles Deleuze once wrote that geographers say that there are two types of island, and this is valuable because it confirms what the imagination already knew. And this made sense to me because when I started thinking about an island, those ideas tended to fall into two categories, right? There's the idea of the island as an exotic idyll, as a sanctuary, as a place of escape. But there's also the idea of an island as something a little more dystopian, the idea of an island as some place where you are abandoned, or an island where you are perhaps imprisoned, encircled by a moat of salt water. Think of Spike Island or Alcatraz or Guantanamo. So an island can be at once confining and remote, isolating and intimate. And to be insular, related to an island, also means, or can be interpreted as meaning, uninterested in ideas or cultures or people outside of one's own experience. But islands are also integral spaces of exchange and crucial points of contact with other societies. They can be primary conduits through which people, goods and ideas move. So island as metaphor, island as context, island as catalyst, island as lived experience. Mary's Bear Island is not a response to island as metaphor or the island as it exists in the imagination, but is born of intimate knowledge. It is a specific and situated response to a particular island biogeography. This body of work weaves together details of history, ecosystem and inhabitants, and addresses multiple overlapping layers of land ownership and use, labour and gender. Her film, which you can see upstairs, The Fine Line, folds in all of these different ideas. It is as beautiful as a board to travel log. It takes place in this gorgeous sunlit day, calm sea. A woman leaves her house with a basket as if going to a shop. She sets off in her boat, wraps an apron around her waist, and picks fish from limpid water. On the one hand, it's like this kind of fantasy of plenty and ease, a dream of self-sufficiency that's much more glamorous and romantic than heading off to Aldi with your reusable shopping bag. But on the other hand, it is a work that thinks about labour and the ways in which our very narrow stereotypes of the gendered inscription of labour become much more complex when living on an island and grappling with the hard physical work of supporting yourself in a remote place. Sure, it looks idyllic, but you can feel the harshness of the nylon line running across the pads of your fingers, or the pull in the back with the effort of starting a motor, or the stretch in the calves as one balances on a moving boat. It's a work that blends gorgeousness, difficulty, resilience, and resourcefulness. So islanders as resourceful, and the island itself as a resource. Because Bear Island is a useful island. Bear Island is the product of complex political histories of colonisation and migration that are legible in its man-made landscape, Martello towers and gun batteries and army encampments. It has been defined by its strategic and economic value to competing nations, entangled with the infrastructure of imperialism. And these resolutely abstract sculptures make explicit reference to Bear Island's history in complex ways and through Barry's material choices. She uses things that are hard and beautiful, opaque and transparent, fragile and resilient. For example, if you look at the grey cuboids that form this kind of barrier as you move into the gallery space, they determine the way in which we experience or move into the gallery. Nothing literally connects them, but at the same time they introduce this kind of weird, uncrossable divide where you're all standing on the other side of this broken line. The mere suggestion of this demarcation forces our movements. The installation is a reference to the division of Bear Island by the British Army, a literal division that separated the eastern end of the island from the western end by instantiating an international border on the island. The army requisitioned all of the houses on the eastern side, so the people living on the island became tenants of the British Army. And this imaginary line became something to be fearful of. To be inside the line meant that the British Army could order civilian evacuation to take place within 48 hours. The Lebanese artist Lawrence Abu Hamdan once said that borders are not lines, they're networks. They're layered spaces. They're something that is drawn and redrawn between movement and capture, history and memory, experience and representation. The red line too, which has this layer of red polyolopsane, also divides equal volumes of steel and glass. And the work here refers to the invented line marked in red on maps of Beara drawn up by the British Army when they were marking this international border. So it's an arbitrary, imaginary line that marks a physical division, a historical event, and a literal action that's realised in this spare, abstract form. It looks like a work by Donald Judd or Joseph Kossuth. But this kind of abstraction opens up the ways in which we can think about borders or divisions. The division between island and mainland, for example, where the shoreline is the border, but a strange one, a kind of fluid, unstable line which suggests a zone of contact rather than separation. And crucially, all of the materials here have a specific connection to the island, to the industry of Beara, steel and glass and polyolopsane as this damp-proof membrane, all relates to sailing and fishing, again to the work that supports life in a beautiful space. We look at the weathered steel, for example, from the outside in. Again, if you move around it, it changes completely. From some perspectives, it looks like this kind of solid block, and from other perspectives, as you move around it, it opens up to reveal these two interlocking planes that support each other. The glass, meanwhile, reappears in glass houses upstairs, which is a series of glass bubbles of different sizes resting on this open plinth. The glass was hand-blown in Donegal, and the shapes refer to traditional fishing floats. So the 89 bubbles correspond to the number of houses on the island, and the smaller bubbles refer to those houses that are single occupancy, and the larger ones to family homes. And they nestle together, each one held in its own divot. It's significant, I think, that this work was generated from a moment when we were all ordered to be an island, despite John Donne's adage, where being marooned took on a new kind of currency. And the islands off Ireland were seen as an escape route from contagion for those on the mainland, as much as they became fortresses for the islanders, keen to protect themselves and also doubly isolated, not only from the mainland but also from each other, intensifying the fragility of island life. But it also, speaking to Mary, generated this situation where networks of support became crucial. So glasshouse, maps, proximity and distance at the same time. And the transparency of that work is reversed then in from the outside in upstairs, which is this architectonic structure. It's a bit like a fortress itself. It's made of these moving shutters that raise and lower at different speeds. So we're never afforded a clear view of what's inside. It enacts this kind of drama of surveillance and privacy, of publicness and private. But it also considers, I think, what it means to be seen as other, how the island is maybe perceived from the outside, with fascination, maybe with a bit of envy, maybe with a bit of underestimation. An island is necessarily defined by its waters. We're connected and separated by bodies of water. And the paired works, Roots and Roots, think about the reality of a commute, realised here in a drawing that's quite sculptural and becomes this diagram of journeys. So the colours in this linear diagram refer to the colours of the boats in which the journey was taken. The length of each stripe is an index of the time taken to cross to the mainland. And the film that's paired with this drawing collapses a whole year of journeys to and from the mainland, each one condensed to 10 seconds. So it becomes this dizzying time lapse of weather, of day and night, of seasons. So we might have this view of island life as offering a freedom. But the sense in this film is of measuring out one's days in commutes, of this kind of eternal return of departure and return, implying again that travel between island and mainland is a defining feature of island life, a state of being in between, in transit, constantly on the move. An island is also a microcosm. It's an intensified version of mainland society and shares some of the same preoccupations: proximity and distance, vulnerability and resilience, borders and communities. And thinking about these ideas at this particular moment is urgent. I think we're living in a time of global perma-crisis, and sometimes it's hard to see what art can do in concrete terms. But sometimes I think art's most important effects, even in times of crisis, are generating experiences of small communion. These internal shifts in sensibility, or the tightening or relaxing of shared atmospheres, or this sudden feeling of understanding or connecting or so on. These things that might alter one's perceptions. And in order to give these kinds of effects, artworks have to grow out of the artist's deep thought and intimate knowledge of their own position in a complex history and context. And that's what Mary has offered us here. These shifting perspectives and vantage points provide us with a kind of concrete understanding of our shared proximities. Congratulations.